Congratulations viewer, if you've clicked on this video and are considering to buy the Citroen Basalt, then you are probably unique. You are one of a kind, you are not mass produced in a factory. Maybe some days you want to wear a shirt and some days you want to wear a t-shirt. And some days you want to wear a shirt and a t-shirt both. It might look good, it might not look good. But what does look good is this, the Basalt, which is both an SUV and a coupe. It's trying to do something different, but does it really work? Well, Citroen says it has style and substance. Style, like I said, it already has. But what about the substance? Now, since the Basalt is essentially a sibling of the C3 Aircross, you will see a lot of familiar design elements, especially here at the front. You get the same split LED DRLs, you get the projector LED headlamp, you get a very similar looking grille also. However, in the C3 Aircross, you have more prominent chrome accents around this area, which makes the front look a little more busy, a little better. But in this one, because this section is just blacked out, it looks a little bit like a toy car. It looks a little bit empty. So while the front looks good, I think this is the only area where maybe Citroen could have done something different to not make it look like it's an empty grille. And these right here are the 16-inch alloy wheels, which are an inch smaller than what you get on the C3 Aircross, and they also have a very different design. But I must say that I really like how they look. They look very smart, very neat. Now, moving further up, you will notice that this has that signature coupe-like sloping roof. But before I get to the roof, I would like to draw your attention to this portion, because you have this plastic panel with this orange accent, which I think is a very nice and neat touch. It just gives a flow, a shape to the roof as the windows merge into this one design. It's a really nice and neat touch. I appreciate that a lot. Now, coming to the back, it ends in this small spoiler, which again looks very smart, looks very neat. And even the bumper lower down is very angular and looks very sharp. Overall, at the rear, the car definitely looks very good, and I must say that Citroen has done a good job in producing something that does really look unique, that does look smart, and it looks a little bit like one of those toy cars that we used to really like as children. And now let's look at the interior of the Basalt. And once again, just like the exterior, it's very similar to what you see on the C3 Aircross. You have a very familiar dashboard design, but crucially, Citroen has heard some of our complaints and made some key changes. The biggest change would be right here, the new aircon controls with the automatic AC option. This is something that we really wanted Citroen to put in their cars, and finally they have heard it. So kudos to the company for making this addition. Just below that, you will also notice that now you have a wireless charging pad for your smartphone. So again, a nice quality of life improvement and something that will actually be helpful to people. Apart from that, you also have this new center armrest, which you can adjust. Now, in the C3 Aircross, the armrest is a little bit thin. It's not as accommodating, but this one is so much better. It's not still as wide as some of the other vehicles, but still this is a step in the right direction. And you also have storage space underneath it. So that is also pretty good. The rest of the quality is the same as the C3 Aircross. If you've seen our review of that vehicle, you would know you get the same touchscreen and the digital instrument cluster. So in that regard, it was a very well packaged vehicle, but now it has definitely become better. Yes, you do not have a sunroof in this, but that I think is something which certain people prefer to have and certain people do not. I certainly am in the latter part of the group. But something that Citroen still missed, well, you see, you still get that old school key fob which you have to insert in the steering column. You do not get a push button start stop system, and that I think is a bit of a miss. You have a lot of headroom. I am 6 feet tall for reference, and leg room and shoulder room is not a problem at all. But let's check out how the rear seats are. Now we are in the second row of the Basalt, and to be honest, I was just about ready to bash this vehicle for having the sloping roofline and the lack of headroom in here, but it's actually not that bad. Yes, it's less than other SUVs in the segment, but I am 6 feet tall, as I told you, and even if I rest my head on the head restraints, yes, my head is just about touching the roof, but I've seen worse. So if you're sitting normally, there is still a little bit of space up there, which means that if you're maybe not as tall as I am, you will have absolutely no problem. Yes, taller occupants will definitely want more area up there, but otherwise it's pretty good. And these head restraints also are pretty nice and accommodating. You also have two USB-A charging ports and rear AC vents. There is an armrest with cup holders, so you are taken care of in that department as well. If you watch a lot of car reviews, you must have seen car reviewers complain about the under-thigh support, and to take care of that, Citroen has added a quirky feature in the Basalt because, of course, it's Citroen, they have to do something quirky. And that quirky feature are these 3-step adjustable seat squabs. So you can pull them up, you can hear the click. So this is 3-step adjustable, and what it does is it gradually raises this half of the seat and it will give you a little bit more support. And if you're fine with the normal setting, then you can just leave it as is. This did actually make a difference when I used it, so it is actually a nice adjustment. Overall, I must say that I am pretty impressed by the second row experience that the Basalt has, and there aren't really many things that I can complain about. So good job, Citroen. If you're wondering what kind of boot space you get with the Basalt, well, the numerical answer is 470 liters. The practical answers, well, you'll have to come closer for that. If I open the boot, you will see there is plenty of space. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 small to medium sized bags, and there is still plenty of space. So if you plan to take this car on a weekend, well, then you can fit in a lot of luggage for 4 to 5 people. And now let's talk about the engine options and the driving experience of the Basalt. So you get two engine options with this vehicle. One is the 1.2 liter naturally aspirated unit which you see in the C3, and the other one is the 1.2 liter turbo petrol which you see in the C3 Aircross. The power and torque outputs are the same as they are in those vehicles, and right now what we are driving is the 1.2 liter turbo engine with the 6-speed automatic transmission. There is also a 6-speed manual, while the naturally aspirated only gets a 5-speed manual gearbox. And out on the road, just like the C3 Aircross, this is a very peppy engine. Like, you float the accelerator, it moves at a brisk pace. Yes, it's not going to throw you back in terms of its acceleration, but it is pretty fast. It's not a lethargic engine by any means. But the problem here is that the automatic gearbox, well, it's a bit too finicky. So the gear shifts are definitely noticeable, but more importantly, what can happen is, especially when you're at slightly lower speeds, maybe you're in traffic or you're just doing like 20-30 kilometers an hour, that is when the gear shifts are very apparent. And on top of that, the acceleration input can also be very jerky at that time. You can make things a little bit better by shifting the gearbox into a manual mode, wherein it does tend to hold gears for a very long time, and then you can control the RPMs as well. However, the shifts are not exactly instantaneous here once again, so that also leaves you wanting for a little bit more. The NVH levels in general are pretty good with the Basalt, but you do hear a little bit of the engine noise, but more than that, you do hear a whine from the gearbox, and that can get a little bit annoying over a period of time. It's almost like the car is running in reverse. That kind of whine, you kind of hear that throughout your entire drive. Now we're driving on slightly bumpy roads, and this is where you really appreciate the suspension setup on the Basalt. Being a Citroen, you get good amount of damping, and even at higher speeds it sort of absorbs a lot of the bumps really well. However, certain bumps at slower speeds, certain potholes, they will throw you around a little bit, and that is when you feel that the ride is a little bit stiff. Sadly though, the suspension setup does not really equate in the best handling vehicle, because at higher speeds, and especially when you're braking or chucking this vehicle around a corner at very high speeds, it does feel a little bit floaty, a little bit light, does not really give you that amount of confidence that you would want. And I think part of that is also attributed to the brakes, which do a good job, but they just don't have that amount of bite which a performance-ish vehicle should have. But for normal city operation, I have had no complaints with the brakes. So overall, I was expecting this to be a driver's car, and while the engine definitely has the character to do that, I think it's let down a little bit by the rest of the chassis and the package to a certain extent. Again, it's not a boring vehicle to drive, but knowing the potential of the engine, you do feel that maybe it could have done with a little more so that you could absolutely go ham with this. So, who is the Basalt for? Like I mentioned at the start of this video, it is definitely for the person who wants something unique, something quirky, something different, something that sets them apart from the crowd of compact SUVs that we have plying on our roads. The design is a key selling point of this vehicle. It really does look good in person. Yes, it's a little more compact than what the photos would lead you to believe, but still it is a fresh looking design. However, along with the style, the substance is also there. There are a lot of handy features inside. It has space, it has punchy performance, so it is pretty much a complete vehicle. But there is one crucial detail which is still missing, and that is the price, which we do not have in our hands currently. If Citroen manages to actually price this vehicle aggressively, it could prove to be a serious competition to existing brands and vehicles that have been doing well. But I would like to close this video with just one thought. In this modern world of following trends, of copying what is doing well, it is really hard to be unique. I mean, the Basalt is unique right now, but I think that's only for a few weeks, because we have another vehicle coming up.